met with President Trump privately before any announcement was made. So quite gentlemanly, like a good public servant might do. But the second thing is that he wanted a Republican president with a Republican majority Senate to be able to have this vote coming up. And even though he was a swing vote on a lot of these things, I think that says something about him, who was originally appointed by Ronald Reagan.
It really does. And, you know, he's just really served it, you know, with dignity. He's widely admired. I think that was really just like a selfless thing to do. Maybe he wanted to stay on a little bit longer, but he thought that this would be best for him to do and do it at this time. And if you look at it, and Shannon explained it beautifully, which is the timing of it is very, you know, crucial and essential in terms of having the votes and being able to get someone on there that will do a great job and be able to serve, you know, for years to come, and someone that, you know, is in the keeping with, you know, the GOP values and traditions, conservative values and traditions, a constitutionalist. And President Trump has really received wide praise for Neil Gorsuch. I mean, has really been a fantastic justice on the court for the country, and in terms of so far, in terms of the rulings and the way he's decided. So now it's the pressure's on to find someone else, and there are so many good choices and candidates in the 25, the initial 20 that and then he added another 5. So it looks like he's going to pick from one of those, and he's got some excellent, you know, choices like Senator Mike Lee.
Jesse, this is replacing a swing vote with, as the president said, a reliable conservative and somebody who takes the Constitution as it is and doesn't try to make law. So it's not like replacing like for like. This is a really big deal for the conservative movement.
Yeah, I'm kind of the swing vote at the table here. I can go left, I can go right. Really independent. I see myself as the Kennedy of the 5. All kidding aside, this definitely moves the court to the right. And, you know, it really puts the pressure on Ginsburg to stay as long as possible. The left is going to put up a big fight over this. You're already hearing Chuck Schumer say, no, we're going to wait until after the midterms. Crying Chuck doesn't have a shot, though. This is going to be voted in the fall. The difference, they're talking about what happened with Garland when Obama was a lame duck and he had the vacancy. McConnell delayed it until after the presidential election. That was the difference. This is just a midterm, and I think the Senate's going to stay in Republican hands. So this will definitely move the court to the right. This is kind of the golden age of conservatism when you think about it. I mean, the court and the presidency, the Congress, the Senate, the state houses, state legislatures, all in the right's hands for now until they screw it up and hand it over to the left. But there's so many issues at stake: marijuana, technology, immigration. I mean, this is a big pick. You better not mess this up. We've seen other presidents mess it up big time. But like Kimberly said, this list is strong. Going through these names, I mean, these are some of the best people out there, women, guys with the best credentials you'll ever see. Mike Lee even was speculated to be a great choice by his colleague, Senator Ted Cruz, and I think he'd be a solid pick as well.
Juan, I understand what the Democrats trying to say, that they should wait and delay this till after the midterms, but doesn't that run the risk of ensuring that Republicans will turn out in droves and maybe flip some of those seats in the Senate that are on the fence right now over to red and take seats that are like Democrats in red states like Heitkamp, Manchin, McCaskill? Wouldn't it just ensure that Republicans turn out to beat them?
I don't think so. I mean, it could be that Republicans would turn out if they felt that the Senate was at stake. And
no, but like, I think that that's true here. Like a Supreme Court nomination generates so much enthusiasm in a Republican
Well, I think
base.
here's the thing. I think Republicans sold their souls on Trump in order, and the legitimacy, the justification, if you will, Dana, was so that we can have a Supreme Court appointment. The guy that deserves all the credit for that is, of course, Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, who denied a hearing for just about a year to Merrick Garland, a Democrat. So much for civility and rules of order. I mean, he just took it, and now you understand what's at stake. And the thing about Justice Kennedy was Justice Kennedy, even though, you know, I certainly disagreed with him on things like voting rights, guess what? He was seen as an open-minded person and who could go either way. What we have now is the potential for a Trump nominee who basically locks us into the kind of partisan paralysis we see in the Congress on the Supreme Court. And half the country will simply say this Supreme Court is in the hands of conservatives, and I don't have a fair shot if I go before the court because everything's going to be decided on a partisan basis, not on the basis of law.
Okay, let me get Greg in here then. So it was actually, remember Harry Reid when he was in charge on the Democrats in the Senate? He used the nuclear option to get more of President Obama's nominees through, and it was Mitch McConnell who said, "You will live to regret this." And maybe they are living to regret it now, because now they're only going to need 51 votes.
Yeah, I just got to take issue with Juan about the people did not sell their souls on Trump. Trump beat the competition, and when that happened, people had to decide whether they were going to support the Republican nominee because anything would be better than Hillary. That's not selling your souls. That's making a pragmatic decision. And when you talk about civility, you can't say to a bunch of people you sold your souls. Anyway, I know that's just a turn of phrase. You probably didn't mean it. I am enjoying the emotional reaction on the left side of this. They were foreseeing some kind of grim apocalypse, as if the Supreme Court is being replaced by Duck Dynasty. I saw a great suggestion, because you know what President Obama did was he picked fairly young women to be on the Supreme Court, and I do think that I saw what's his name, Ben Shapiro, tweet that if he was chosen, that's 60,
he's only 34.
He's a lawyer. He's 34. You got 60, maybe 55, 60 years. I think Trump has to pick somebody young, somebody that just can last for a long, long time. But I do think, to everybody's point, Kennedy pleased and displeased often the same people. Ronald Reagan appointed this man who backed abortion and gay marriage, which tells you you can never predict what's going to happen when you put that person on the court. When they get on the court, sometimes things change, and they start thinking about, do I really want to mess things up? Do I really want to pull things back? They change.
Well, I don't. By the way, let me respond to you. I don't think there's any question about the party selling its soul, because if you think about a man who defamed John McCain, a man who talks about grabbing women roughly, for the evangelicals, I don't think there's any question abortion was the issue. And abortion in terms of the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court ruling. And they want someone there who will overturn Roe v. Wade. And they were willing to overlook all of Trump's flaws in the sense that say, oh, well, Hillary would put a lefty up there, right? Okay, well, I don't know.
Isn't that also, but isn't that what Greg was saying?
No, Greg said that I was not being civil by saying they sold their souls. And he also was trying to make the point that somehow, it's okay for conservatives to celebrate this victory. And I think, Greg, there's a bigger point here, which is you need Americans to believe in this court. This court does not have an army. There's nobody to make you respect the court. So the idea is that the American people would grant them authentic and sincere leeway to make decisions based on law. If people start to believe that, this is just a Trump puppet court, I think it's bad. But
you could argue the same thing for Obama's choices.
No.
Which are very partisan.
No.
And also what you're also wanting, and what the president said he wants, is judges who will adhere to the Constitution and not try to make law outside of the Constitution.
Well, I think we just had a poll that said nearly 60% of Americans say the Constitution has to be interpreted in the contemporary context, not going back to what the founding fathers.
Well, it's a good thing the Supreme Court justices don't rule by polls, Juan, and that's why they're there. They're not politicians. They're supposed to interpret the Constitution as it was written.
No.
And to your point that you just made, I mean, the courts swing to the left and to the right over generations, and I think the part of the American people that stays the same is they always respect the institution of the court.
Yes.
Once the Supreme Court makes a decision, the country says, you know what, Supreme Court sided, and we're going to agree with it, whether that's a left-wing court or a right-wing court, and that's been the tradition in this country.
I think that if you go back and you remember 54 in the Brown decision, there was a massive resistance. And it was only that the Eisenhower administration was willing to do things like send the 101st Airborne in to support.
We're beyond the civil rights era at this point.
So, but we'll have plenty of time to talk about the Supreme Court nomination. But coming up, the stunning Democratic primary upset that's got the political world talking next.
Everywhere we go, girl, you're the star of the show. And everybody's wondering and wanting to know what's your name? Who's that girl with the prettiest smile in the world?
A stunning upset in the Democratic Party last night. 28-year-old Democrat socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez shocking the political landscape and herself after defeating 10-term incumbent Joe Crowley in New York's 14th congressional district. So how did this happen? Boy, here's the rundown. Crowley didn't bother showing up to one of the debates, opting to send a proxy on his behalf. Ocasio-Cortez ran on a platform far to the left, calling for the abolishment of ICE, and now she's raising eyebrows on the impeachment question.
Would you push for a Trump impeachment should you win?
Well, I would support impeachment. I think that you know, we have the grounds to do it.
Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi downplaying the defeat of one of her top allies.
They made a choice in one district. So let's not get yourself carried away, an expert on demographics and the rest of that. It is not to be viewed as something that stands for everything else.
Wow, you know, this reminds me a little bit of what happened with Eric Cantor a while back, remember, on the right? But on the left,
That's
I mean,
a good comparison.
Everybody thought Joe Crowley was the next Nancy Pelosi.
No, he had set himself up to be the next Speaker of the House. It reminds me of something that Congressman Steve Stivers, who's in charge of the House Republican congressional races this year, he told every one of them, you have to run like you're 10 points down. Even if your internal polls are saying that you're way ahead, or you think some underfunded underdog could never possibly unseat you, that this is a year that's very different. You know, only 26,000 people voted in that election. So it was 15,000 to 9,000, I think, was the final there. And so you have to run like you're going to lose, or else you will end up finding yourself having to concede to somebody that you maybe didn't even think was going to win.
So, Jesse, here's some of the things that the winner stands for. She wants a ban on guns. She's, again, as you heard, is opposed to ICE, the immigration control folks. And she wants campaign finance reform. What do you think, Jesse?
Keep telling me all these wacky things she believes. This is great for Republicans. I remember when Obama was president, it pushed the Republican Party pretty far to the right. And you saw the rise of the Tea Party, and then they had that internal warfare with the moderates and the Tea Party. This is still playing out today. Right now, Donald Trump's doing that to the Democrats. He's pushing the Democrats so far to the right. They didn't really have a lot of room. He's kind of pushing them to the left, off the cliff to a certain extent. And this is why you see a socialist, an Occupy Wall Street Democrat who wants to abolish ICE, who wants to impeach the president, and believes in Medicare for all, which, by the way, costs $30 trillion over 10 years. So this is the result. And I think this is good to have her voice in Congress. I'm really glad that we're hearing her, but she's obviously a star. She's got a big, bright smile, very young, attractive, tall, good-looking woman, a lot of energy, and she's going to be on every single cable news show for the next couple months. And, you know, we better get used to saying her name. I can't pronounce her last name. How is it?
Ocasio-Cortez.
Ocasio-Cortez. We're going to have to give her a little nickname like OC or something like that. That's a tongue twister.
So, Kimberly, she is a Bernie Sanders supporter. Sanders has not been doing well in terms of people he endorses winning on the Democratic side.
Sure.
But the energy that she represents has been seen now across the country in terms of Democratic turnout.
Yeah.
So is this an indication that, in fact, rather than trying to go to the middle and, you know, try to be nice with Donald Trump and his supporters, the Democrats should go hard to the left?
No, I think this is a losing strategy, but if they want to go ahead and do it, knock themselves out. I think this is like campaign laziness. You shouldn't lose if you're somebody like him by 3,600, votes. He should have showed up for everything and not mailed it in. He took it for granted. And, it's like, yes, he follows in the footsteps of Hillary Clinton. He should have done more, and he did less, and he lost. So maybe he's going to do a book tour and cry about it for a year. We'll see. As for the, momentum and progressive and basically a socialist winning, okay, this is the Democratic Party. They don't have any messaging. Now they have like fringe candidates like this coming out. That is not going to win any like mainstream elections or anything like that. It's too alienating. It's too far left. It's not the principles that are sustainable and work unless you would like to run for office in Venezuela. Then that would be fantastic. But, nevertheless, she went out there. She put herself out there to win and to run. And she managed to pull this off, I think, much to everyone's surprise, including her own. So we'll see what happens. But I think it's presenting very polarizing, choices, come the election. But we'll see what she does with it. She's going to get, sound bites and get some interviews. But now she has to try to start thinking like a serious candidate and what she actually, is going to put forward.
So, Greg, given what Kimberly just said, it sounds like the energy here is anti-Trump on the left, and that's why she came along.
I actually think it's anti-Democratic Party. When you remember that it was Hillary that cheated Bernie out of his chance at becoming the nominee. And so Pelosi sees this as an anomaly. I see this as a trend. This could be a bunch of Bernies, especially to Jesse's point about the media will christen her as a superstar. She will be on MSNBC more than Russians, and the media desperately wants to crown somebody as a superstar because they're suffering for the dream. They need the new Obama, and they're going to overlook the extreme rhetoric that is on her side. You know, socialism never has worked unless it's in a capitalistic society where the effects don't count. But she will get the hero worship. They won't notice people that support her, that there's some troubling people that support her. You can look it up. The radical talks about impeachment. They will overlook that as well because they're as disgusted by Hillary and what happened in the election as many people who voted for Trump were disgusted by mainstream Republicanism.
All right, the Republican National Committee is out with a new ad highlighting liberal incivility, they say, aimed at President Trump. We're going to play that ad for you right here on The Fox.
The Republican National Committee out with a new ad taking aim at unhinged Democratic politicians and Hollywood elites for their heated rhetoric against President Trump and his supporters.
A few years ago, ideas that we talked about were thought to be fringe ideas, radical ideas, extremist ideas. Those ideas are now mainstream.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd.
That's only half the ad. It goes on for a minute. And it is so good. It's like Hannity himself cut this ad. And it's about time the Republican National Committee came out guns blazing. I think it's going to be extremely effective. What do you think?
I always think it's very effective to use people's words against them, right? The Republicans didn't say all of these things. They're just putting together what the Democrats have said and done. And it's pretty amazing that Maxine Waters would give Donald Trump the high ground on civility.
That's a big gift.
Like, right? I mean, she'll never be able to take it back. I mean, unless she apologizes, but it doesn't look like she's going to do that.
That's right. And there's other visual elements in the ad, Greg, where they have Snoop Dogg holding the guns at Donald Trump. They have Madonna saying she wants to bomb the White House. This is very aggressive.
Yeah, you could look at it two ways. You can say the ad shows you how the left is unhinged. Or if you're a liberal, you can say this is the greatest hits of the resistance. I love this. So I think it works. I would say if I were making a commercial, I would have shown all the achievements on jobs, taxes, potentially with North Korea, although we don't know, GDP, the economy, terror. Show all those things and then rewind it so that it starts to disappear and say this is what will happen if you don't vote. Because the one thing we've learned is that people don't want to lose things that they already have. And I think that's a lot of things have happened in 18 months that you don't want to lose.
Yeah, this could be a contrast moment where they're setting something up for a different ad, like Greg said, to make them think, you know what? We don't want to lose what we have.
Yeah, listen, I think this was brutally effective. It's 30 seconds. It is highly persuasive. It is engaging. It's explosive because it really shows some of the real, like the vitriol and the incendiary rhetoric and calling for violence. And this is like, wait a second, this is the party that, you know, you're going to vote for? Okay, you've got economy and great numbers and things going well with national security, et cetera, or you have this kind of like insanity. It's just so unglued and unhinged. Like, whoa. It just seems like they're just super fringe and dangerous and not reasonable or sane.
Yeah, we have Samantha Bee in there with the feckless language, Bill Maher rooting for a recession, and Johnny Depp fantasizing about assassinating the president. Juan, this is rough stuff.
This is rough stuff? Is that what you said?
Courtesy of your party.
I think it's, you know, to me, this is grievance politics played to the fairly well by the Republican National Committee. It's running this ad. Oh, poor Republicans. We are so beaten down. They insult us. They call us names. They don't respect the president. Please, give me a break. Who is the least civil president we've ever seen? I believe we know the answer, and he's in the White House right now. And so what we have here is a situation where people are like, oh, yeah, this is good. Because, like, if somebody gets pushed out of the Red Hen restaurant, asked to leave in a very civil manner, but asked to leave, oh, that means that we're put upon. Poor conservative. Get out of here. But then, well, nonetheless, if he's trying to fire up, what?
One Republican did get shot recently.
Oh,
I think
stop. I think we're a year away from people getting run over by some of the neo-Nazis and white nationalists.
I think we're worried about where this is going. It's a legitimate worry.
Yeah, I worry about neo-Nazis.
We all do.
And I think this is a problem that all of us want to have more civil debate and discussion. But to say that Maxine Waters is calling for violence? She never said anything like that. That's when you guys go over the top. People say, oh, I understand what's really going on here. This is just red meat to the base.
Democrats said the same thing, Juan. Schumer said that.
Said what?
Said exactly what you just said didn't happen. He said she was calling for stuff and she should stop.
She did not call for violence.
No, I'm just saying Schumer. I'm saying Schumer said it. Your facts are up for interpretation.
Well, it wasn't civil with the Red Hen restaurant because she also followed the family across the street, so they couldn't even go someplace else to eat. There's nothing civil about that.
This is not civil. This is certainly not separating a child from his parents.
We know how effective the ad is,
which
just based on Juan's reaction.
Yeah.
Anti-Trump FBI agent Peter Strzok feeling the heat on Capitol Hill. Members of Congress weighing in on his closed-door testimony. That reaction.
FBI agent Peter Strzok, who vowed to stop Trump, is finally answering for his biased text messages and explaining his role in the Clinton email investigation and Russia probe. Strzok grilled for hours today behind closed doors by 2 House committees. Congressman Mark Meadows reacting to the testimony.
I would expect, any witness to suggest that they've looked at this impartially. I don't know how you read the text. I don't know how any reasonable person reads the text and would suggest that there was no bias. If you have intimate personal conversations between two people, that normally would show the intent more so than perhaps something that would be said out in public.
Okay, Jesse, in a reaction to this, people have been waiting quite some time to get some of the information and hear from him. We've seen the text messages, but haven't heard from the person directly.
Yeah, I wish I had heard from him on camera. It's sad that he was behind closed doors, but that's the way things are. I guess there was classified information shared. It would be like a dirty cop texting his lover about, I hate black people are the worst. And then all of a sudden, he turns the screws to a black guy, sets this up, sprinkles evidence all over him, and then you charge him and you say, seems like you're a little biased. He goes, oh, I never let my bias impact my investigation. I mean, come on, it's common sense. He was so biased, he couldn't participate fairly in the Mueller investigation. He got fired. That means he's so biased he shouldn't have been participating in the Hillary and the Trump-Russia FBI investigation. The context is critical. It's not like he was saying out of the blue, I hate Trump. Oh, these are my personal feelings. These text messages about hating Trump and stopping Trump and insurance policies were made in the context of him discussing investigative steps and decisions he was making as an FBI agent. And also, I just wanted to bring up one thing that we glossed over last week. Susan Rice's chief cybersecurity officer testified on camera that she gave him a stand-down order about Russian interference. When Russia was interfering in the 2016 election, Susan Rice said, stand down, don't do anything about Russian interference. Come on. I mean, how serious is this thing?
Can I respond?
Since he was looking directly at you,
I appreciate it. I didn't want to interrupt your flow.
No, I just was going.
But sometimes the garbage is so heavy, you got to watch your head. But I just want to say, Jesse, remember that the Obama administration, President Obama, again, not to my favor, I wish he'd done differently, decided that it would come across as partisan if they went before the American people.
Obama would never want to come across as partisan.
I didn't interrupt you.
Sorry.
And so they decided first to approach Majority Leader McConnell and say, do you want to join us in saying there's Russian interference and we're taking steps to combat so that people don't view it as somehow now favoring Clinton over
but they never even told Donald Trump the Russians were trying to get involved in the campaign.
But the
Why not tell him that?
Well, please. But the second thing to say here is that with Strzok and Page, there's been an Inspector General's report. This is not subject to some we don't know. The Inspector General of the United States and the Trump Justice Department has said there was no indication of bias or untoward behavior by Peter Strzok in the investigation. In fact, The big
in the
big
Clinton
point was
investigation.
the Clinton. I was about to say, if anybody deserves an apology, it's Clinton.
Okay, Dana.
Sorry, Hillary.
I don't know what else to say. I mean, there's the hearing. We don't know a lot about it. And
Sure.
Sheila Jackson Lee says, seemed like an effective investigator for the nation. Mark Meadows goes on to say, none of his concerns about political bias have been alleviated. I have a feeling that even if he were to testify for the next 10 months, they'd come out and they'd say the exact same thing.
Interesting
Nobody's minds are going to be changed.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
Well, there's one question that has to be asked. If this doesn't constitute bias among someone investigating you, what would? What is the threshold? What was missing from... Does it have to have some kind of implied violence? But then that would be like, no. These texts are between emotional people, fraught with passion. We've all been there when we want to say, stop Trump or threaten whoever. So, like, there's never ever going to be a threshold.
Pillow talk.
Pillow
No,
talk.
I think the threshold would be if you took action that was biased.
He did.
He did not.
That's the problem. He's investigating, and he said those things.
Boy, if he had, you guys would be jumping up and down. There's no evidence he did anything but conduct a legitimate investigation. And by the way, he wasn't the sole decision maker.
Wait till the IG report
people.
comes out, Juan.
It did come out.
Not on the Russia-Trump investigation.
Oh, yeah, you want different stuff because you're not
hanging
pleased
in
with
the
the
balance.
facts.
It's gonna come out. All
The
right.
facts disturb you.
I love it. It's disturbing. All right, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu taking a page out of Trump's playbook. Greg's got the tape next. Stay with us.
Finally, soccer is good for something. I kid. I love soccer. Here's Israel Prime Minister congratulating Iran on their exploits in something called the World Cup. Apparently, the World Cup is a competition between countries that play soccer. It's very popular around the world.
Can you imagine how hard it is to stop Ronaldo from scoring a goal? I used to play soccer. Let me tell you, it's almost impossible. But the Iranian team just did the impossible. To the Iranian people, I say, you showed courage on the playing field. And today you show the same courage in the streets of Iran. That's why I offered medical aid to save Iranian lives after a devastating earthquake. One day I'll hope to watch Iran's soccer team go head-to-head against Israel in a free Tehran. On that day, we'll all be winners.
So as we worry about incivility within our own borders, we're watching olive branches sprouting from all over. Somewhat similar to Trump's North Korea experiment, Netanyahu is taking a we'll see what happens approach to Iran, trying to lower the temperature by appealing to similar human needs and desires. We all like soccer and watching soccer with our families, and you can only really do that when there's peace and prosperity. Netanyahu's creating a contrast between what is and what could be. Does that sound familiar? As John Bolton and his mustache meets with Putin, there seems to be a new pattern taking shape. And while world leaders have exchanged pleasantries before, this feels different. It's as if peace is being sold and finally people are buying. Let's hope these opportunities aren't squandered the way they were before. So if an outstretched hand works with North Korea, which can go either way at this point, or Iran, or Russia, maybe it can work with our fellow Americans too. To quote the guy who kicked this whole thing off, we'll see what happens. All right, Dana, there's a couple of things here. He's appealing to what's going on in Iran right now. The streets of Iran, the people are out on the streets.
So they're out there having a lot of protests because we put our sanctions back on. That started to have an immediate effect because sanctions are effective. Unlike before, however, and I would just say way back, these protests in this week, they are in the streets are shouting death to the Palestinians, not death to the United States. They are focused on their government as being the enemy of the people of Iran. That provides a big opening, and I imagine that Netanyahu, their intel is great, so they're figuring out if you can talk directly to the people of Iran, they might be able to force change in their leadership. The other thing I would say is that the freedom of information, being able to get unfiltered, raw information through people's phones on the internet rather than through state television could be a really big answer in Iran, Venezuela, other places, maybe even North Korea and Russia, frankly.
Jesse, I'm a little worried about what's going on in North Korea now. Have you been following that stuff? There was some detail, I guess,
satellite images showing that they might have started new work on a nuclear facility. Yeah, I mean, it's troubling. I think that Trump needs to re-engage on that, and I'm sure he will.
Get the stick and the carrot.
Right. Keep the momentum going on that. Maybe he needs to play a round of golf with Kim Jong-un. Or, you know, I think obviously sports is an elixir. Remember the spirit around the country during the Olympics?
Yes.
That's always positive, and you saw what happened with North and South Korea on that front. front. And when Trump plays golf with people, I think that always
placate him
forms, you know, placate the leader of North Korea. I was kidding about the round of golf.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But you know, you're such.
But you know what? Maybe
seriously.
maybe at Mar-a-Lago they might go for you know, around 18. Who knows? But in all seriousness, I think people are moving away from isolationism to a certain extent into a new era of engagement. It's just interesting that Donald Trump and Netanyahu are the ones leading that charge.
Yeah, Juan, don't you think that there could be a summit in the offing? The U.S. and North Korea can do it. Why not Israel and Iran?
I don't see that coming. I don't see
Juan's the realist.
I don't see that in the cards. But I must say I was awed by the way you put icing or pink eyeglasses on to talk about what's going on in North Korea. Maybe you could do that too with Harley Davidson moving out as a result of Trump's tariff. Go ahead and try, but I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, if this was Obama, you guys would be celebrating. Oh, look at North Korea's out there doing their own thing.
But we wouldn't be celebrating. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. No. The point is it needs to be addressed. It needs to push back on him. And maybe it's time for some more fire and fury, not golf or chocolate cake at Mar-a-Lago, although that would be nice. But, I mean, he's not going to put up with it, that's for sure. So if Kim Jong-un wants to, you know, play, you know, cutesy with President Trump, you think again, you'll lose that battle.
By the way, I do enjoy soccer. I just don't enjoy watching it. I love playing it. It's fun to play, but it's not enough scoring for me, I guess.
Well, America's not in it this year, so it's tough.
A lot of running around.
A lot of running around, and I don't like running around. I like people to bring the ball to me. All right, one more thing is up next.